7 reasons to quit keto and low-carb diets, and this may surprise you. Let me introduce this by just telling you a little background information. Your body has 2 diet fuel sources. It can run on glucose or it can run on ketones. Now let me back up just a little bit. If your body is eating carbohydrates, it takes those carbohydrates and stores them in the muscles in the form of glycogen. And glycogen can be stored to about 2,000 calories. So you have a limited amount that you can store. You can burn through that in one day easy. So you don't eat for one day, you have burned up all your stored glucose. On the other hand, you don't have 2,000 calories of fat, you got probably 100,000 calories of fat. So we can access that fat to burn by restricting calories or by restricting carbohydrates and protein. And if you do that, it becomes a ketogenic diet. So here's how ketogenic diets work. I'm going to give you just the basics. The diet aims to force your body to using a different type of fuel. Normally, again, it runs on glucose that comes from carbohydrates such as grains, legumes, vegetables, fruits, and breaks those down into glucose for fuel. The keto diet relies on ketone bodies, a type of fuel that is produced from fat intake and also from fat stored in your body. The ketogenic forces your body into something called ketosis, and you can measure these ketone levels in your breath and in your urine. Now this all started in 1969 when Owen and his colleagues did a famous study of fasting people, and they had an IV in these people giving them protein, amino acids, and nothing else. And they put them in this ketosis state. And being in ketosis with that protein coming in kind of spared their muscles from being eaten up. Traditional diets, you eat mostly carbs. The pancreas secretes insulin in response to that. Insulin acts like a key in your cells and opens the doors so this glucose can get in, and then your cell uses that for energy. That is the preferred body fuel. If you eat mostly fat in your diet, then lipase breaks down that stored fat, and the fatty acids travel to the liver where they are turned into ketones, which can also be used for energy. Burning fat seems like the ideal way to lose pounds, but it gets a little tricky because the liver has to convert the fat into ketones. And you have to significantly restrict carbohydrates in order for this whole process to begin. And I mean restrict it to 20 to 50 grams a day. Now if you eat one medium-sized banana, you just took in 27 grams, and you ladies in here, you will not be in ketosis if you do that. And then other foods have carbohydrates too. Once you restrict the carbs enough, it takes a few days for your body to get in this state of ketosis. So eating too much carbohydrate can interfere with you getting into ketosis. And also eating too much protein can interfere with ketosis because your body can break protein down into glucose. Therefore, your diet must be mostly fat. And I always think, how healthy is that if your diet's mostly fat? Here's a breakdown of most ketogenic diets. 20 to 25% protein, 5 to 10% carbs, and 70 to 80% fat. Now we're going to dive into this a little deeper in our next video, but I want to talk about the brain and keto diets. Glucose is the universal preferred fuel for all the cells of your body and your brain. And your brain uses a lot of glucose every day. 20% of all the glucose your body makes is used up by your brain for you adults. For kids, 50% of all the glucose you use they produce is used for their brain and energy in their brain. So the brain actually burns about a 1/4 pound of glucose per day. Now, I'm not suggesting you take in sugar. We don't want that. But fruits, vegetables, legumes, grains, those all break down into glucose. If you have interruptions in this fuel supply that is being delivered to your brain, it can be deadly, as in it can kill you. So your body has to have a system to supply fuel to the brain when glucose is not available. Here's the problem. Your brain has something called a blood-brain barrier. So fat traveling to the brain cannot get into the brain very well. So how does the brain not starve to death in these states? Well, we have a backup system, and that is the ketones. So the fat in your body is taken to the liver, and the liver takes that fat and turns it into ketones for fuel, and your brain can very efficiently run on ketones. In fact, for some medical conditions like epilepsy, ketone diets seem to work extremely well. But there are some downsides, some significant downsides of ketogenic diets. And in our next video, I'm going to dive in 7 reasons to quit keto and low-carb diets.